All right, I just hit it. Double check, make sure it's all good. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. We should be good. We should be good. Okay. Good test. All right. We are back. We are back. What's going on, y'all? How are you doing, Greg? Man, how you going doing today? How's
Hey,
everything
I've been
with you?
doing all right. I've been doing okay. Can't complain. If I did, it wouldn't make a difference anyway. So, my bother.
Well, for those who are watching, we got a good show for y'all. We're gonna do something a little different. Not too much, but a little different. I have a couple of videos queued up. I wanted us to look at a couple clips and talk about how people are using AI in litigation, and man, you'll get caught. I'll say it like that. You'll get caught. And I wanted to share some clips. I wanted to get Greg's reaction to this. It's authentic. I'm not sure if he's seen the video or not, but we're
Probably
gonna get
not.
the
But
see. But that's the point of this is just to get an authentic, genuine reaction of a couple nuances that I thought was very interesting in terms of people, both attorneys, both pro se litigants, and the like, all in between, getting chewed out by judges, by magistrates, by hearing officers because they got caught using AI.
improperly, not
Very
AI
much so.
using it improperly. Because let me say this before you started. On if you've noticed on my recent writings, because some of the judges in the 13th Judicial Circuit of Hillsborough County require an AI certification whenever you use AI. So I put it at the bottom of mine. But it's supposed to, part of the certification includes that you verified all the sources. So it's not that you use AI, it's just that what you use in AI, you verified it to be accurate. This is how it works in the 13th. And even if they don't ask for it, I put it on there anyway. Actually, it's in Florida. But one thing I did know that there's no requirement in the United States Supreme Court that you show the designation, but you know, as a caveat, I could write a little bit anyway, so let's not forget that part. Which is
Well,
why you and I have talked about it. But go ahead, I'm gonna let you handle it. But I'm serious about this stuff, bro. People don't need to be playing around with it.
no, they don't. I'm 100% with you on that.
So let's go.
But
Let me get a good laugh. Come on.
but for the most part, I want to start the show off with something before we get into the meat and potatoes and the gravy and green beans and grandma's casserole. I want to start the show off letting people know that when it comes to this conversation and the banter, so to speak, that me and Greg have, I'm not speaking for Greg. Greg ain't speaking for Maestro. And I want to say that plain and clearly. I'm not speaking for Greg, and Greg is not speaking for Maestro. I ain't gonna be Umar and say the third time because I know y'all know how that goes. The point I'm saying when it comes to that is because I'm gonna say some things that Greg don't agree with. He gonna say some things that I don't agree with. But here's the best part about when you're working together in cohesion, right? Is sometimes people will say something that you may not want to say, but you're glad they said it. You may not want to be caught saying it, but you're glad they said it. And so, therefore, when it comes to this platform, when it comes to YouTube, I'm all about following the guidelines and the rules, right? When it comes to that, but on this platform, I'm gonna say what I want to say, and that just is what it is. And when it comes to that, I want to share with y'all because Greg has taught me, and I even had to start using this in the in my own education. Right? I'm gonna share my screen real quick. I was talking with Chat GPT. I thought this was appropriate because we're getting ready to talk about how to use AI properly, right? As Greg said. But I asked Chat GPT, I said, what is giving legal advice? Because a lot of times we like to just talk about this and have this conversation, but we don't actually ask the AI specifically. And so the AI responded, right? And I'm not saying that you have to believe this or not believe this, whatever the case is. I'm just letting you know that I asked the AI. And AI responded and said, examples of what legal advice could be saying that you should file this motion, right? Saying that how you should plead out, saying that this contract legally protects you, saying that you're entitled to something, like for instance in my situation, custody, or you're entitled to an outcome that comes from a hearing officer. predicting a particular outcome, as I just mentioned. So saying something or predicting it, that would be all considered legal advice. The reason why I'm saying this is because so many people are afraid to speak on legal terminology and share legal information. And that's not the same thing as giving legal advice.
No.
So the differences would be explaining what a motion is. On this channel, and Greg has done it too, I'm going to explain what the motions in my jurisdiction are. That's not me giving you legal advice, okay? Summarizing what the law says. That's not giving legal advice. Organizing evidence or creating a timeline. That's also not giving legal advice. Identifying questions that you might want to ask a lawyer. Guess what, y'all? That's not giving legal advice. And helping edit or document something while making it clear that a lawyer should confirm the legal strategy. See, I want to be very clear with this because I even challenged the AI and I let the AI know. I said, Greg is way more cautious than me, right? And I gave my spiel. The AI came back with a clear way to say, if I say Ohio law or Florida law is this, that's information. Here are several motions that are recognized in Ohio or Florida. That's information. But if I say based on what happened in your case, now we're getting personalized. Now we're giving legal advice. And I thought it was very important for us to start off this way, Greg, because I want the people to know before I put my banner up that I'm not speaking for you. You ain't speaking for me. And just because we're talking about the law does not mean we are giving legal advice. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you see in my new backdrop that I make sure I have it up there pretty clearly above me. But, I'll give my disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. I don't have a license to practice law. I do not practice law. What I've done is study the law, tell people what I learned, how I gather the information, which is typically through my experiences. So I don't give information as advice to apply to your specific case, but it's general information regarding the law and lawful principles, which, by the way, belong to the people. So please use any information obtained for educational edification only. And the reason I say that is because I want nothing that I say to be construed to be legal advice. If you feel you need legal advice, I would highly encourage you to hire a licensed and hopefully competent attorney to be legally advised. So with that being said, if you wish to continue watching, you can, but making no distinctions and let me also give them a little bit more background to it. Is I have been accused of I've had an investigation into unauthorized practice of law, and I had it come from the bar, not from some random individual who may have said something. So it came because of certain attorneys, I'm pretty sure, and we know it's not a secret that in a couple of my cases, attorneys have cried about some of the things in fact, they've cried about my YouTube page, which is kind of weird to me, about how they actually gave this page credit, but I had to credit everybody who's a subscriber, I guess. They called it a very popular YouTube page, where I speak about my in-court experiences, which is it's my life. I can speak to it as this First Amendment protected, but yeah, being careful for obvious reasons. I don't want to blur any lines, and I think I always tell people I think you should get attorneys. I know everybody has a different experience with attorneys, and we can go into another show, probably not even on this one, but on another one, why I am the way I am when it comes to attorneys. I did work with attorneys before, and I've also done some. I've always been independent, but I've worked as a paralegal and as a legal assistant, and I've done some other independent things, kind of through gig work, because I don't. I definitely don't support what I do based upon necessarily getting a lot of solicitation from the people. I don't have a big clientele base. I told my pops what you said, and he appreciated that everybody doesn't have a Calvin Doss, and we appreciate you shouting out that. As we know now, and you said you didn't know how important it was to have him, because this is an expensive journey. And we've never even done a show about that. We should probably bring in some attorneys and try to figure out what would it have cost me, Maestro, to do what I've done if I had to have an attorney do it to the depth that I've done it, when you consider the totality of all the kind of cases that I've taken on. We don't even know, do we? It's been expensive, though.
Yeah, that's something we do know. Unless they're a very bad attorney and they don't charge. Otherwise, yes, it's going to be very expensive to that point. And to piggyback off of what you said, and that is going to be a topic of conversation in another as we say, the next episode.
the next episode.
So that's going to be a different topic of conversation, because you do need a support team, and that's something that I want people to understand from my perspective and to be clear about, because I know Greg has a different perspective, but I'm letting the audience know from my viewpoint that you're not going to be him, and I think that that's more like I'm being cautious when I say that. I'm not saying you can't be a Greg. I'm saying don't go into it thinking you're going to be a Greg, because you have no idea how much his background and his support system helped him get to where he is. You see his videos, you see his pleadings or motions and things like that. You can see his information transparently, but what you don't see is that he had his father in his life. I'll say that one more time. He had his father in his life. Okay.
Well,
That
my
makes
mom too. But yeah, I have a lot of family support, brother, mother. Crazy. I mean, some people may think it's strange. My children's mom. You have the Miss Benells of the world, the Sean McDowells, the Steve, the Dean Williams, the William Crowley, people that we're going to bring on. I'll bring on and let people introduce people to them. I'm forgetting somebody. I hate that I'm forgetting them too. Will Crowley, Frank Webb, my supervisor at UPS, where I was a union steward. Those people were very instrumental, and even Thor Johnson, who was the one who kind of moved me toward being a union steward at the time that I was there. But and the military people, I can go on and on. Willie Figures, Yancey Berman, people who made it possible for me to not do anything so detrimental that I've been in Leavenworth, because there is that part of Greg. But yeah, a good support team, and having the right masculine voice in your ear. Even though my father's he tempered things. I think my fieriness definitely comes from my mom, because that Georgia, that Gullah, me, the Geechee, that line that comes from the Nat Turners of the world. There's another part. So, but you have to have a good support system. It does make a difference. I appreciate you saying it that way too, Maestro, because it makes one heck of a difference.
So based on that last part you said, and this is my thoughts with it, because you just said, well, one, the reason why I was emphasizing father is because, when it comes to my channel, Primi Prego, I'm particularly more than anything talking to men, because I believe that there's a fatherless problem in America. Can't speak for all countries, but in America. And the interesting part, without diving too deep in it, when you mentioned your mother, you mentioned the fiery part. Now, most people could go anywhere they want to go when it comes to thinking, well, what does that mean, fiery? And the way that I'm taking it, right, is that is more about emotion. When you said your father tempered you, that usually came from the stoicism, right? And a lot of men typically are more stoic than women. I'm not saying not all, okay? But most men are a little bit more stoic than women. Most women are a little bit more emotional than men. Okay. So when you said fiery, I found that to be very interesting in a way, because that's why I emphasize you had a father in your life, because a lot of men in America, factually and statistically speaking, don't have that. Most of America's has single mothers, and a lot of again, I'm saying America, right? So for anybody to say, well, no, not the world, Craig, not to say but the world, I said America, the United States of America, y'all, okay? And we do have a single mother problem. And when it comes to
hold on. It's interesting you say that. Maestro and I are about 20 years apart as well. The other part is I did grow up in environments where there was a lot of men, because the military background, which whether people want to think it now, people think that discipline came from the military. My dad was, I think more people want to see my mom my mom the mom in me gets their attention. My dad is the one I introduced to people, and then immediately, okay, so this is what you need. And my mom is the one who's like, you don't never let anybody push you around. You always stand 10 toes down. And they didn't tell me a lot of the background, but as I got older, I realized what my mom had seen growing up in the South. And her fuse for BS was real short. And so when I say about her, that part is in me ready to come out now. But just watching my dad handle things a little bit differently, it helped. But I definitely appreciate what my mom gave me in terms of being I think you said it last week. You ain't giving nobody no second chances, none of that other stuff. Yeah, my mom starts at 0 and then it declines. So that's kind of like where I am. I just happen to have had a living example of something to try to handle it that way, because I am extremely not extremely. I can be short tempered, especially with certain people. And I just figure I can just use some sign language to get your attention. Maybe some sign language to get people's attention. So, but you can't do that in court. So I'm it's a good blend of all things.
Well, although we are 20 years apart, we definitely have the military, like family military aspect of things, especially you actually being in the military. Both my parents were in the military, mother and father. I was more or less, I would say I was raised more by grandparents because my mother had to go overseas, and my father stayed in the South. And so I have a background where I was reared and raised. And I remember my music teacher always used to say, when I was in choir, he used to always say, you don't raise children, you rear them. And I love that he said that, because we get accustomed to using these words as if those are actually how the words are supposed to be used, which will come into the topic of discussion in today. And so, yes, you rear children, but it just sounds weird. And when it came to, my background, I had Latinos, I had Asians, Caucasians. I had all kind of mothers and fathers, non-biologically help raise me. So I have a different type of view that most people won't have. So that's the reason why I still have, fire and passion and emotion while having stoicism and other things, being able to, be laser focused on things because, of that aspect of things. So me and Greg have different backgrounds. We have different expertise. We have different ways of viewing life. But when it comes to our, I would say, common denominator, it's this litigation and fighting for yourself and fighting for what you believe that really brought us together. He's just more experienced in terms of things outside the family court than I am. But when it comes to the family court system and talking about that particular subject matter, I'm looking to share more or less, more than anything, insights, make people laugh, at some of the craziness that happens, and teach people some lessons, that come for that, because I'm going for custody, which is affecting the child support. And if I'm not mistaken, Greg, and you can let me know if I'm not mistaken, that wasn't your same issue when it came to the family court system, the custody part.
No, I became more familiar with the custody aspects later down the road. Now, when I coach guys, I'm glad you did mention that, because when I coach guys, I do bring up that first. In Canada, I tell people, if I had even been 20% as aware then as I am now, it's a whole different ballgame. Because I'd have drugged their asses. I'm like that. I don't even play with it. I'd have beat their asses a lot worse. Could you imagine them dealing with a 30-year-old me with this information? Versus, I got all, interesting enough, I got all my information, ever tell you, after the age of 40. The entire gambit of the stuff that I started doing came after the age of 40. So people who talk about time, a lot of that's gone away too, because time kind of went away with anybody's argument after they found out about the 27-year journey, huh? So, but yeah, it'd have been a lot different. And young guys like you, who they should depend on, because I learned a lot from the people like you, because I had to admit that I didn't know anything, because you introduced me to different versions of AI, and then I was used to using, and it brought me a lot further, faster. A lot of this stuff I could do it like a dinosaur. If I used to tell my dad, I think I told you off air, I said, they had 4 of me to deal with, these people would have problems. Well, you gave them like 2.5 of me, because I still don't have one of me that can go to sleep for me. But but as far as the information and setting it up to use it to maximize its ability to help me as an assistant, I guess what you call it for me, it's like and you can actually set it up for yourself to be your assistant, and it understands nuance, it understands things I look for. It makes a ton of mistakes still, by the way, or I call it fuck ups, but having the background is what allows me to see it, catch it, correct it in many instances, and continue to move forward. So, so I thank you for that. Because remember, I was hesitant about using AI at all.
That's most people. And it's okay. I mean, it's being hesitant using any other new tool. At some point in time, they were hesitant about driving cars because we have horses. Now we ain't using horses no more. So, it's just about when you know better, you're supposed to do better, right?
Right.
And when we learn more, we can use that information to make new decisions. Otherwise, we're going to keep making the same decision that we've made. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and getting the same outcome. So these are things that you have also in reverse have taught me as well too, when it comes to how to speak and what arguments are, what legal facts, what facts are versus legal arguments. That was a big thing you shared with me, and something that we talked about offline, not on actual stream, was curing. And this was something that I had told Greg. I was like, man, that in itself is a whole show, right? Basically correcting the record, because oftentimes they will put things on the record, and if you don't get it corrected, it follows you like a doctor, diagnosing you as delusional, right? So you just say, hey, doctor, I'm feeling these things on my body, and the doctor's like, okay, I'm gonna check that box and check that box and check that box, and then when you see them notes in your health app or whatever, you're like, wait, hold on. How am I delusional when I told you the next doctor that you go to, the first thing they're gonna see, they don't see your face first. They see what's on that record. It was going for that. So you have to cure things, meaning correct the record, and you have to get them to correct the record. That was one of the best things that I have learned from Greg, besides so many other things. But I had learned from Greg was, man, don't just have them, take accountability. Make sure that accountability is on the record. Right. Very, very, very much important. So we're going to get into the first video here. I'm going to share my screen real quick, so that way we can see this first one. Let me stop the screen share. And then let me know if you can't hear it, because this is new, y'all. This is something different. And every time we do this, we're gonna get better with the weather. We gonna, we're gonna keep getting better and better in terms of making things more interesting, making things more entertaining, and making things more educational. Because listen, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. Mary Poppins. So we can't have no boring show and expect y'all to stay on this joint. We gotta do, but also we don't want to do controversy for the sake of clicks. That's not what I'm about. I don't think that's what Greg is about either.
Okay.
All right,
Sandy Duncan and Prince. Mary Poppins, and good job, bro.
All right. It should be showing right now. Let me hit the play button. Ever play.
If there are no more questions.
So before you sit down,
Yes,
there's
sir.
one more thing I need to ask you about, unfortunately. In reviewing the trial court's order denying the motion for new trial, there are at least 5 citations to cases that don't exist. And there's at least 5 more citations to cases that do not support the proposition for which they're cited, including 3 quotations that don't exist. My understanding is that you prepared the order for new trial, the denial order for the trial court. Were those citations in the version of the order that you submitted to the trial court?
No, Your Honor, I do not believe so. They were not. I did prepare an order. That order was revised.
So those non-existent cases were cited in your initial brief opposing the motion for new trial.
Your Honor, I'm not aware of that, but I would be glad to research that and provide the court with a supplement.
Okay, we'll get a briefing order out directing what you need to supplement with. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fleischman, you have some rebuttal time left.
Wow, that's in the beautiful peach state of Georgia. That's you saw I was leaning closer. It wasn't that I couldn't hear. I was trying to see what was on the back of those judges' chairs. Oh, cheese and crackers, bro. That was
crackers.
Wow.
What do you think? What are your first thoughts when you see that?
Well, one thing for sure, that's embarrassing to say the least. And depending on how the court may want to handle it, there could be all kinds of discipline that flows from it, because discipline can come to us for putting in bad information. I as you could tell, I was kind of taken aback by that, but I'm not surprised that, you know, even if she didn't use AI, because I don't know what the date was of that. But I've seen attorneys do some things in courtrooms that are not only raised my eyebrow, but made me look at the people and say, you know, we need to be a lot more, we need calls to actions to hold people accountable when attorneys or judges, for that matter, or because a judge is an elected official, a public official. An attorney is a person held to a particular standard based upon a set of credentials that they have. But when they do things like this, and I'm gonna tell you, I don't know what kind of case it was. So I looked at it. I'm interested in seeing it. But can you imagine being her client and knowing that you may have your freedom on the line and your attorney may have done something like this, or it could be a civil case where time is of the essence. And I don't want to get into what you would have to do because I don't know enough about the facts of the case. But that did not look good at all, even from my modest perspective. I'm pretty sure the attorneys that are watching this channel, because I'm sure they're watching me right now, I'm sure you all may have something to say. Why don't y'all drop a line to me or to Mr. Maestro and tell us what you think about attorneys filing things that are not accurate, like some of you all have done in my case. Sis.
This is the first thing that comes to mind when I think about this. Let me know if you hear this.
What's that? I don't know what it's called. I just know the sound it makes when it lies.
It's one of my favorite lines in Tropic Thunder, and that's one of my favorite movies because that's basically gonna be a big part of one of the next videos that we watch. Right? When you are using this AI. And the reason why I'm sharing these videos, right? If you're wondering, because you're thinking, okay, well, you said, y'all said, or whoever said, you know, you gonna teach me how to use AI. Well, first of all, sometimes it's better for you to learn what not to do before you start learning what to do. And I wanted to close the whole narrative or door by showing that attorneys do it too. Okay, right. So that way we can remove the bias and say, oh no, attorneys don't use AI. Yes, they do. We just saw it, and she just got caught using it, right? Yeah, and that's an important. It was horrendous, and that was a big thing, especially 3 years ago when ChatGPT came out. And I'm not saying ChatGPT came out 3 years ago, but it was a big thing about the hallucination factor. That's why if you're gonna use AI, you need to understand they are always trying to reduce, right? Decrease the hallucination factor because of things like this. It will make up citations. It will make up case law. It will make up certain things. I mean, not make up, but it will make stuff up, right? Yeah, I said it right. Make up citations. Yeah, it will make things up, you know, and guess what you have to do? Whether you're an attorney or whether you are representing yourself, you still have to hold yourself accountable for whatever goes on those filings or whatever comes out your mouth. It don't matter what ChatGPT, Claude, or Perplexity says. You gotta hold yourself accountable. You can't blame AI. Every time. So that's one thing I wanted to discuss with you, and you know, coming up with thoughts in my mind and say, okay, how can we come at this angle? I mean, how can we come at this topic? That's why I said I want to do some reactions to these videos because, man, attorneys aren't the only people who do it. Pro se litigants do it, and magistrates and judges, they also do it too. And if anybody wants to argue that, we're going to watch another video so that way we can close all them doors of, no, they don't. Yes, they do. Let me cue this.
People are human. And sometimes, I mean, even if the judge he underwrites whatever his JAs, judicial assistants, may do. Because a lot of depending on what the level is, judges have clerks, and the clerks are supposed to do certain work, and they're held to that standard. Just like if an attorney presents something they didn't double check what their paralegal did, the attorney still has to eat that. But yeah, so go ahead. I'm interested in seeing this one.
All right, we got another one up. So this one is titled "Judge Destroys Attorney After He Cheats with AI." I'm not going to play the whole thing. This one is longer, but I want to play this beginning clip. I might fast forward to the actual ruling, but I want to play this beginning clip because this is very important.
Right now, we're all set. All right, so what I've got on my docket here is a motion for reconsideration of a defendant's motion for summary judgment from a while back, and then motion for sanctions due to some case law citation and other things that I guess the defendant wants to talk about. So there was a motion to Also to object to a visiting judge, but y'all already agreed to one before. So you've kind of waived that. Doesn't really matter because I'm hearing the case right now. So that's really not on my docket. All right. So let's go with the defendant's motion for reconsideration. Either Mr. Willard or Mr. Dima, you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Andrew Willard for the defendants. As I stated earlier, I represent both defendants, the Victoria Glen HOA and its former president, Robert Cruz. The plaintiff, Mr. Pacheco, is a resident of he has filed a lawsuit against my clients asserting breach of contract, declaratory judgment, and a breach of fiduciary duty. The breach of duty is only against Mr. Cruz. Essentially, Mr. Pacheco is arguing that he's being incorrectly assessed his HOA fees by the HOA, and this is resulting in him being overcharged compared to some of the other residents. The motion for sanctions is being filed today because we had previously filed a motion for summary judgment seeking to dismiss all of Mr. Pacheco's claims as a matter of law, because they are time barred. On November 25th of last year, we argued this motion in front of Judge Burgess. At hearing, counsel for the plaintiff relied on and cited to multiple cases that either don't exist at all or to holdings and propositions of law that aren't actually in the cases that were cited. I'll get into this in a little bit more detail, but it was very clear at the hearing that Judge Burgess took counsel's citations as if they were in fact true, and then ultimately denied our motion for summary judgment. We're here today asking for relief from the court. Specifically, if the court so inclined, we'd ask that the order denying defendant's summary judgment be vacated, the plaintiff's pleadings filed in response to the motion for summary judgment be struck due to the false and inaccurate case law. We'd ask.
Let me pause it right there real quick. I just want you, Ed Lee is the one who's being accused of using AI. I just want you to understand that. It's Ed Lee, okay? So Ed Lee used AI in this case for his filings. He used AI that gave him citations and case law that did not exist. And I want you to understand, because this to me is what was a huge indicator that this is going to be a huge problem moving forward. He directly said the judge took that fake case law and ran with it and ruled against them in the other party's favor, meaning that the person who used AI used fake case law. The judge, okay, however they did what they did, allowed that to go through and ruled in the favor of the person who used fake AI.
So I don't want to say it, but there's an intentional representation, there's a intentional misrepresentation of material facts, and a deliberate omission of material facts that can potentially constitute fraud. Of course, not legal advice is certain things that you may want to look into, but they moved the court's machinery improperly and under a false auspice. And that's what I heard you just say, that if that's the case here with this. If that's the case with this, I'm sorry, I kind of tailed off, just kind of. So it don't just happen in Florida in front of me. So I guess that could be some sort of consolation for me.
Yeah, and this is why it's good for us to have the, let's say, break it down. You know what I'm saying? Bone Thugs and Harmony, Mark, break down, skip it to me on down. We got to break stuff down sometime, because you need to understand, like, as we say, jargon, right? So I come from a background of technology, of building computers. I remember I built my first computer to help me build my own music studio, and I had to build every single part by itself. I remember teaching people over in Greece and teaching people in Taiwan, right? You can Google my name, Maestro Stevens. I traveled the world. I teach people tech. I always have to break it down. And they always say don't use jargon terms. Your clients, people, they don't always understand the words that you and your industry, your field would know. So you have to break it down. And I like the fact that Greg understands both aspects of it. And so he was able to give you more of the the legal information, right, about what it is we're seeing. But from a breakdown standpoint, if we just say 5th grade student level, what just happened was not right. You know what I'm saying? It was just flat out wrong. The judge allowed, now this could have been somebody could have went on death row for this, right? A judge allows fake citations to go through, and somebody could have died from that. I'm being, extremely dramatic on purpose, but that is the problem when it comes to AI and it not, people not being held accountable, whether they write it, they use it to write their motion or pleading, or whether they allow it to go through on the record and that affects a decision. To me, that's very dangerous. What are your thoughts on that, Greg?
So look up the word, look up sanction.
And that's the key word. That was the key word before, that when you were saying what should and shouldn't happen. I'm glad that they said it now in this one, but that's what it's called, sanctions. Basically, that's punishment. so to speak, in some way, accountability. And so I thought this was interesting to share, that not only did somebody use AI, but a officer of the law who is in charge of making decisions based on the arguments of both parties, you know,
For the court.
can or the court, right? They're representing the court. Can one say that they actually reviewed thoroughly the filings?
Well, when they attach their bar number to it, that's their certification that they did that. So that was interesting and horrifying, by the way. But
Yeah, that, and the reason why I believe it's very important for the audience to see it that way is because the decisions that are made in these cases, I believe 100% these officers, right? Because I haven't seen a judge yet in my situation. So when people keep saying judges all the time, I'm like, you must not really be going through it, because there's some times where you're not going to ever see a judge. You know what I'm saying? Unless you get to the appellate court, you may be only dealing with a magistrate, a friend of the court, a certain hearing officer. And when it comes to situations like that, you have to be very careful, but you also have to hold them accountable, because in my situation, I told the court multiple times that no stay, meaning there's no reason why we can't enforce this order. I'm trying to hold somebody accountable for an order that they made, the courts made, and I just want them to enforce the order. And they keep saying to me, well, we can't enforce it because you appealed the decision, so we can't really do nothing. And I told them in multiple filings, that's not true. Where did this stay come from? Why is it presumed? Who asked for it? Who granted it? And the whole time they kept telling me no. No, this is a stay. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because my argument going forward that they gave me is, a reasonable person cannot say that you thoroughly reviewed my filings if you are stating them on the record. I told you 4 times that something was not true, and yet you kept saying it was true. How can a reasonable person say that you thoroughly read the filings?
I guess the question I was going to ask is, and I don't know the situation or the circumstances, and I definitely don't know. I haven't had as much experience with the Ohio law. Is the issue that when you filed a document in an appellate court, the lower court lost jurisdiction over the entire case or some portion? Okay, well, and there you go.
That's what the issue is. That's what the issue is. Thank you. I'm glad you asked that question. That they tried to pretend like they didn't, and that's what upsets me, is that they didn't think that I was gonna, catch them with the hand in the cookie jar. So they tried to pretend like they lost jurisdiction when it came to the custody part. But guess what? They did not pretend that they lost jurisdiction when it came to the child support. And it was the same court that ruled on the same issues. One issue, we don't have jurisdiction. The other issue is, yes, we do.
Well, I'll tell people in Florida, of course, it's not legal advice. Administrative cases in Florida, or agency cases, are, aside from circuit court jurisdiction, and circuit courts don't have jurisdiction over administrative cases, but so you can ask the circuit court for what's called a superseding order. There's a lot of nuance to it. And I'll say this also, for those who didn't know, none of my cases were administrative. All of my cases were judicial. Hence, the rigidness in the strictures for procedure had to be followed. So I had the benefit that many people going through it today don't have. But there's obviously ways that you can work around it depending on what the situation is. So, and by the way, if I didn't say it also, check out the super chats if anybody may need, you need to put yours in it too. If you need a service, what have you, super chat, you get the deduction of the super chats, plus you get a percentage off of the service as well. So you make your money stretch a lot longer if you decide that you need any individual coaching or consulting. Non-legal advice, you won't be buying legal advice. So there we go.
I hit the wrong, my bad, y'all. I hit the wrong.
Yeah, I was wondering what the hell that was. I'm like,
no, I did hit the wrong thing. But speaking of, liking and subscribing to the channels while we already here, while we talking about it, that's the main thing. My channel is not big enough for super chat. Greg is too big for his bridges, as they say. So he can super chat. I can't super chat yet. Not, YouTube is like, you ain't big enough to be super chat. So
But
that's
you can
why
always reach,
I
you
ain't
can
got
always
it up.
reach out to him for information for what he is good at, which is his vast understanding of tech, how to use artificial intelligence, the different platforms, tools, how to set your assistant up so it can benefit you, and not just with self-representation, which I'm totally against self-representation unless it's like mine, the product of necessity, but for other areas beyond like I said, self-representation, whether it's what's the other thing people do, web design, anything else that you might want to do, I don't know, but Maestro is a great source of information, and I would suggest anybody who happens to be watching one of my videos to hook up the link up with him, because it definitely accelerated. It's like me taking the steroid injection.
I appreciate that. And to your point, consulting or consultation, that's something that Greg is pretty much alluding to. I'm really big on helping others get through their situation when it comes to growing your business, organizing your life and things like that, building out, as he mentioned, a website, or even using AI to just help improve tasks, task management. I'm real big on consulting when it comes to that. And the field that I'm in, I don't need a degree. That's the beautiful part about it. But it's also the curse, because that means the barrier of entry is low. So that means you're going to get a lot of, fake, gurus or people who will take advantage of you.
He said
Huh?
it. He said
it. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. But yeah, make sure y'all like the channel. Right now I got 11 subscribers. This is a new channel, so I'm gonna need y'all to do that. A matter of fact, from now on, we ain't gonna keep doing these shows without y'all saying something to us in the comments. You know what I'm saying? Engaging with us, liking the video. You know how this game work, right? And we giving y'all some game right now.
Don't forget this now. We did this last week and people came on late, and maybe it's because of Sunday. And don't forget, in certain areas, school's about to start, so you probably have people running back and forth getting this. But what I'll say is I definitely appreciate our last collaboration. I think it's almost over 1,000, which it doesn't rank high with a whole lot of these other huge channels and what have you, but 1,000 views is quite a bit. And I'll tell you, watch from beginning to end, 365 days of the year, same old love forever, Anita Baker. But you take advantage of these opportunities to get information when it's being essentially handed to you without a cost.
Free.
So
that's basically what it is.
I do agree with you. I appreciate it, because it seems to have grown my channel a little bit more of that, and I guess some other things. Oh, we got more.
Oh yeah, we got one more. We got
so much more.
I wanted
Onyx.
to show all walks of
Wait,
life.
we got more. We got more Onyx. Go ahead. I'm looking at the background, trying to see what state. We have Georgia. This is Georgia, Texas, and where we at now?
I'm not sure where this one is, but I'm gonna play
I can explain. The issue, and this been up with Anderson and I, is you had a question about the grams per 100 milliliters.
Dude,
and
that's a scientific question. You can call up the scientists or the lab analysts that do that. I'm not in charge of that. And the legislature makes up the laws. I'm in charge of following and enforcing the laws.
Okay.
So what's your question? You think that you were below the limit, above the limit, beyond the limit, how they came up with the limit?
According to this, I was not above.
Okay, and that's like a AI chatbot thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's wrong.
Yeah, it is.
An AI chatbot?
But
Are we using artificial intelligence?
it's just that I was measured in thousands, and the law goes by hundreds.
You can have a trial if you
I am so great to have a trial. I love having trials, especially when the lab analyst comes, and especially when then it completely opens up to the maximum penalties. That's great and fine with me. Is that what you wish to do, and have a lab analyst up here to explain all of the scientific reasoning behind the calculations and behind their testing?
Just take me to jail.
Okay, I think that's his way of saying he's not rushing to press the point, Your Honor.
Okay. So I wanted to share that one. I wanted to share this one because
What state?
I mean, I don't want to get into the comments and things. It ain't saying the state right now, so I don't know what this is. which stated it specifically. But if y'all want to look at the video, judge destroys defendant's AI DUI argument in court. That is the video. But the
Inside
main
the
point,
case. Okay.
the main point is the fact that he basically admitted right then and there to using AI, right? And you heard the judge's response. She repeated it back. Now, she knew exactly what he said, but she wanted to repeat it back for the record. That's why she said it, and she emphasized it the way she did. That was not an accident. She was probably floored away. How dare this person use AI to make their arguments about being drunk and getting caught being drunk. And you heard him at the end say, "Take me to jail." So obviously he knew he was guilty in some sort of way or fashion based on the situation. But when it comes to this scenario, this is another situation where we saw a lawyer, we saw two lawyers actually. Now we're seeing a litigant using AI, getting caught using AI. And if you actually watch the full video, because it's like 30 minutes long, you could see she goes in on him from that. But what are your first thoughts on that, Greg? Somebody says Wisconsin, it may be that.
Okay,
They've seen this
Wisconsin.
judge before. Yeah.
That was disastrous. And I think we talked about it. I talked about it yesterday in the video. And interestingly enough, here's what's crazy. That guy in that video, I can almost guarantee, probably thought he heard something or saw something and knew, hey, AI, if you want to know something, just ask ChatGPT and then do it. And he might have thought he's one of those confident secondhand people. And appreciate your comment, Mr. T. And he used the information in a way that was disadvantageous to his situation. Yesterday, right after I finished the show, 2 people sent me something from somebody saying things, and I'm like, if somebody says something, you tell them to show you the case, the state, and the outcome. Full transparency. Because there's far too many people. I'm pretty sure he got set up that way. Just ask ChatGPT, or because most people don't say don't ask Claude, don't ask AI. I just go to AI. And there's 1,000 different AIs now. And he probably set himself up to let the world know just how uninformed he was. And he probably thought he had some super slick way of getting through the process. I don't know all the facts, but that went horribly.
Yeah, he sounded a little incoherent. You know, he sounded like he just got through.
Like they might have just pulled him over. Yeah.
Right, really. Just by hearing the way he's talking, he sounded like they just pulled him over. He's leaned over. You know, you can see him leaned over and things like that, like he's tired. But in this scenario, this is why we're sharing this information to not to scare you or to tell you not to use AI. I wanted to make sure that that's clear, because for you all to be able to see how it's used incorrectly. Right? That's the key thing. Greg said it in the beginning. It's you want to properly use it. It's not don't use it. It's just use it correctly. And using it correctly, there are different methods. There are different ways you can go about it. But to understand that it doesn't matter what you do in terms of how you go about using AI correctly, you are responsible for what goes on that record. That's the main lesson. You are responsible no matter what ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Gemini, DeepSeek, all these other, no matter what those things tell you and how they tell you and why they tell you, it is you who is responsible for making
AI
sure.
Isha,
AI Isha, that's one that Greg got me hip to. Westlaw, right? Open case, that you're still responsible. You know, that you're still responsible no matter what. And I think that one of the best ways, just starting off, like what things you can do in order to help mitigate, right? To help mitigate the hallucination is to use multiple tools, right? Because if you use multiple tools, speaking of AI specifically, if you use multiple tools, you have to understand, or you should understand, that they all have different trainings, right? That's why they call it training data. That's why I say you ain't paying for the tool, you are the tool. You're the product for these AI companies. So they have training data because they have humans that are programming them. So the AI it's a program at the end of the day. And if you use different tools that have different programming and you can come to some kind of middle ground, most likely, not saying it happens all the time, not all, but most likely one of those tools is going to catch something, right? It's going to do its own research. It's going to have its training. And so if you can catch that, I think that that will help a lot of people. That's just one thing, but what are your thoughts on that? Or if you want to expand on anything else?
Well, you know how I feel about everything. You have to check and double check, searching it, because you can't research until you first search. Okay, that research again. So I think too many people grab this information. Like I say, you have the confident idiot. You have the I heard it one time person, and you have the person who thinks they are certain because they read one thing somewhere or two things somewhere within one statute without understanding the context fully and well enough to represent themselves. And what's interesting about that guy in, that may be in Wisconsin, thank you, Mr. T, 9989, he was sitting next to an attorney. So what looked odd to me is that before you decided you wanted to spring that on somebody, and I hear people say, I'm going to do this, I have an attorney, but I'm going to do this. If you have the attorney, you have him for or her for a reason. Utilize them. Why would you spring something on your attorney without having spoken to the attorney about using it? Because that was it was an ignorant comment, not incoherent, because he didn't know how to go from metric from what U.S. standard to metric. He didn't understand it, and he just made a statement without doing the conversion, which was just odd, and it didn't appear to have anything to do with the issue that he was addressing. So, or that he probably needed to address. I don't know what he was addressing, but what he probably should have been addressing obviously didn't get addressed adequately, and that's typically going to be a losing outcome. And like I say, I'm not an expert at all. I'm just an expert at what I've done, but it would be disingenuous to say that I don't think that I've pretty well experienced, fortunately or unfortunately, in a lot of areas. But some people speak confidently, but when people like if a person spoke Czech, Maestro, they couldn't talk around Maestro because you'd be able to understand tech. You talked about jargon, you understand tech nuance, you understand acronyms, and I speak often, even with Mrs. Bonnell, say, yeah, don't y'all use them acronyms. What does the acronym mean? So I don't let you just speak through, AMG. Okay, what does that mean? Is it the Academy down in Florida, or is it something else? Is it something that belongs on the back of a BMW or something? I need you to break it down so that I can understand the context. Same thing works with the law, and with anything. Some people say, a CFR 24 dash what says and does this. What does that have to do with your issue, man? Okay, what does that have to do with your issue? You may be using a valid statute where it doesn't apply, and now you're wasting time. So be careful with that. And I kind of seeing that made me think about that. And again, somebody sent me something yesterday. I said, damn, you could just watch my show and I talk to you about people saying, I go into court and I tell the judge, I'm the this guy and I'm the that guy. Okay, how the hell did that turn out for you? Then what he said right there. Tell him, yeah, really? Okay, what's the case number? What state and what was the outcome? And give me your name too. Durag or Dorito, which I'm eating these Doritos right now. But give me your name, give me the case number, give me the state or in the jurisdiction. And if you can't tell me how it turned out, give me enough information for me to go and look it up. I'm trying to end all the foolishness in our community with some of this bad information. And this is a great one, because seeing people go to court and get their doors blown, which we are watching people set themselves up to get their doors blown, I think is proper. And misuse of AI can cost you dearly.
Absolutely. After watching these videos, I actually went back and I used AI to review my filings and review the transcripts, right? And I did that because I was curious myself. Has there any, and I already pretty much knew the answer, but I was curious enough to see if the AI was gonna catch it. And I asked, hey, have you heard or do you see anything where I'm being scrutinized or criticized based on my filings, knowing that I used AI to do these filings? And, the AI didn't see anything. So that was something that was a good reality check for my own self, right? Looking in the mirror to see, hey, okay, was there any times at all where they mentioned something about me using AI? And the reason why I'm asking that is because when you are in these situations, most likely, or at least more than not, they're going to use anything they can against you. This is not fair fights. Like
No.
they're not fighting fair. So if they can use the fact that you have citations or you have case law, right, and it is it's fake, they will use that.
Use
That
that
doesn't even
word.
have to be the
Don't say
issue.
it's fake. It's or inapplicable, misquoted. The case
Yeah,
law is no longer relevant. Whatever it may be.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And
I'm with you.
that's the thing. So what Greg just said, I want to correct the record, right? Because I'm saying what I'm saying because that is the terminology. Like if we're gonna educate all the way, right? Hallucination is the term that they use when it comes to what the AI does, right? That's the term that it uses. The outcome is fake, right? So it has to think it's hallucinating, meaning, and the reason why I'm saying this is because hallucination is not bad. So for those of you all who don't understand how AI works, I want you to understand hallucination is not negative. In this case, no pun intended, it's negative. Now, why would I say that? Because anytime that you use AI and you ask it to come up with creative ideas, meaning things that are not facts, it's hallucinating. So hallucination is not a bad thing, y'all. It's just when it hallucinates things that it's stating as facts, right? Or statements that are in that scenario where it's evidence. That's when you're like, okay, I don't want the AI to hallucinate. But yes, we do want the AI to hallucinate when we're saying, hey, give me a title for this video. Give me a description. Well, those aren't facts that it has been trained on. It has to come up with things creatively, and that's the terminology, at least in the AI world. So I just wanted to correct the record for that. But like Greg said, it's fake. It's not real. These are the outcomes when you're in court that they're going to use, right? For the most part. What are your thoughts on that, Greg?
No, you're correct. And you use the technological term of it hallucinating in court. They're not going to call it hallucinating. Depends on who you are and what your position is. It could be sanctionable. It can be sanctionable even if you're not an attorney. But what they'll and what you may actually end up doing is being called vexatious, or your filing become frivolous at that point. And that frivolous filing can get you somewhere in a lot of trouble. They tried to label me as a frivolous filer, and then I came back, and we know about the ruling where I got the reversal when the appellate court, because I had a transcript to show them, the appellate court watched the transcript, and they came back and said that the order was devoid of any facts to support the injunction that they were seeking. There's a lot more background, but I had to definitely think for if nothing else why it's on my mind. If you happen to be here and you're a pro se, make sure you check out Miss for Scott Reporting LLC. She stood in the paint for us. Taisha Scott is the owner and lead court reporter. They've been doing it since 2013. They do remote recordings, and her number's on there. You see the 954-383-4955. You can go to scott-reporting.com, look her up, and hey, I tell her I don't need anything. I just want people to put themselves in a good situation to get the best result that they can get. So there you go.
Explain what you mean by remote recordings, just for people who may not understand that.
Oh, Zoom, because we have a lot of Zoom recordings in this area. And what's interesting is her presence, even though she wasn't the court reporter for a couple of them, because what happened is as I began to use court reporters myself, my opponents who were defense counsel started using some of the some other court reporters to try to, I guess, dissuade me or to exhaust my resources. But because I have the benefit of a lot of support, I'm able to get transcripts, and these transcripts can be costly. Again, we said it. If you're not willing to invest in yourself, this may not be the venture for you. Okay, because it is quite costly. But I can show y'all hundreds of pages of transcripts that I have. In fact, I even had to send some to the United States Supreme Court, which is why, as much as you saw that stack of papers, I had to send out to them. This is work, and anybody who's out here telling people that it's not, you're doing them a disservice.
I agree. And that you said something before I want to touch back on when it comes to this topic of using AI properly, right? Frivolous. That's something that I had to learn as well too, going into my scenario. And the reason why I believe it's very related to what we're talking about is because typically when you have a new tool that can do things for you that take a long time to do, you're more likely to abuse that tool. And that's what the claim is when it comes to frivolous, that you're abusing the proper channels by doing too much, right? I'm breaking it down in a very simple manner, right? 5th grade student level, right? C grade student level. I was a C grade student. I got A's and B's, but I like to say I was a C grade student. And because when we have this tool like AI and it can whip up, right? You know, as the kids say, whip it good. It could whip you up motions. It could whip you up
Devo.
pleadings. It could, what you mean, Evo?
Devo. Crack
Devo, yeah.
whip.
Right. and
DJ
so,
Squid always, huh?
always with the human jukebox. I'm gonna call you that. But when it comes to, you know, filing and using AI, I think it's a two-part fold, because what I don't want anybody to think is that just filing is bad, right? You know, no, you that's how you have to complain. You have to make a complaint. If you don't file, they won't hear it, and they love defaults. They love when you don't do nothing, because guess what? They get to just think. It makes their job. Listen, do you know how much money they get paid? So much more when you don't fight back. Let's just keep it all the way real. If it took you an hour to do something normally, but now it only takes you 5 minutes, but you're still getting paid for the hour, well, what you gonna do? You gonna keep doing stuff for the whole hour? Or you just gonna do the stuff for the 5 minutes? You get paid for the hour. So I think it's important for people to know that no, you don't want to file you know, in a way where they can call it frivolous, right? Where they can say, well, you're just filing for the sake of filing. Like, what is your point? Like, why are you doing this? And you're like, well, it only cost me $20 or $30 to go through the e-file and to file this motion, and AI only cost me $20 a month. So there you go. No, be careful with that. And I believe in my case, that is something that they couldn't claim, because in my most recent decision order from magistrate, they had 7 filings in the order that I filed that they recognized on the record. 7. I've never seen nothing like that in my situation, nor have I seen that in other people's situations. And if the mother or the other party had a lawyer, or the courts themselves, right? They typically would use that against me. Oh my God, well, you know, he filed so many times, but they can't do that. Why? Because all my filings had merit. Don't matter how much they had merit. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, absolutely. Because one thing, and depending on what your state is, again, it's not legal advice. You can look at the rule yourself. If they do claim that it's frivolous or that you're vexation, depending on your, this is what I would say this. Let me rephrase this. If it were me and you were accused, and I was accused of being a frivolous filer or a vexatious litigant, I want to look at the rule. Florida would require there being no basis in fact and no basis in law, which is again why the transcripts become important. Putting those transcripts out there become important, and understanding the rules so that you can invoke whatever protection you may have with regards to being labeled improperly as whatever it may be, or whatever the issue is. Always know what your issue is, what rule governs it, how to apply or analyze, and how to conclude that you're entitled to whatever relief you may be seeking. IRAC, issue, application, conclusion. There's other versions of that as well, but yeah.
And that, I'm a Don DeMarco that one, because that was something that Greg taught me. And I'm dead serious. I've never heard, when he talk about acronyms, did he just say about acronyms? About acronyms. I've never heard that acronym ever in my life, right? I'm like, Greg, what you talking about? We ain't overseas, like the wars. I'm like, okay, let me understand this. And then I looked it up and I'm like, wow, like it makes sense. And it helped me understand how to format my filings so much better, right? My motions and my pleadings, to understand the issue, the rule, application, and the conclusion. Before I added this new superpower or weapon to my tool belt, right? Because I'm Batman, right? I'm not Superman, I ain't Greg, but I am Batman. I can get busy now. You give me the right tools. And when I added that to my tool belt, the AI said, like, dang, that's it. And every time I use the AI to help me analyze and strategize, because I have it in its memory. So here's another tip that you guys could do. You have instructions. Every AI tool has instructions. Well, what do I mean by that? You can go into the settings and you can add, now maybe one may have, it says personalization, another one may say something different, right? But you can go into that settings and then you can tell it every single time that I'm using you. It doesn't matter what project I'm in. It doesn't matter if I start the chat today, tomorrow, or next week, or whatever the case is. Follow these instructions every time. This is how I want you to talk to me. Those are things that you all need to be doing, especially when it comes to, you know, being a litigant. You need to be doing, because that way, if you're going to use the AI and you want to use it as an assistant, right? And in those, you know, in those situations, you wanted to keep following that same rubric. In Iraq, you know, that was a very big thing for me. You know, making sure that it always understood we need to follow this methodology, this I don't know if it's a methodology or what would you call it, a framework, you know, so to speak. How would you describe it?
I actually learned it from an attorney. So that's why I started learning the different versions of how you know, teach me how to issue spot. So I went and did research on issue spotting. How to look at a case and not reading the case for what you're looking for, but reading the case for what's there. We spoke about it when I did the review. If you go to my YouTube channel on the case, the Holmgren case out of Minnesota, people were saying, well, the Supreme Court ruled child support unconstitutional. I was telling people, no, they didn't. And the arguments I was having, I'm like, if it had been deemed unconstitutional, it wouldn't exist anymore. And then I just read the case for people. I'm like, damn, all you gotta do is read the case for what's there. And in that case, it just told them that in this instance, and I'm paraphrasing, the court's decision violated the separation of powers. They reserved judgment until the legislature had a chance to clean up the rule. They cleaned it up, kept going, just like that. And just go read it. And actually, I highlighted it as I was reading it. Not to give them legal advice, but say, listen, man, and I learned this from an attorney. He said, man, I did something one time. He said, you were looking for someone, wasn't you? I said, how'd you know? He said, because you looked until you found what you were looking for. But what's the holding? Oh, that's fine, but what was the holding? What was the question for the court, and what was the holding?
I like that.
But you have to know how to read, and then you have to be willing to do the reading. It's necessary in finding cases that are most aligned with the case that you may, with your issue. Find a case that has facts that are most in alignment with the facts of your case.
And that's something that no matter how much AI that you use, it ain't gonna do it better than you as the human, right? Because it don't have all the background knowledge. It doesn't have every single nuance and detail.
Especially not in your case.
And especially not in your case, right? You know, and that's why I think it's important for people to build a project around the AI that they're using. Right? If you're going to use AI, build a project, because every single time you go back into a new chat, that's why I said the first thing I told y'all was use that personalization, use those instructions. That's one way to make sure the AI is consistent and is personalized to you and your situation, because otherwise it's using its training data. And the AI can be every AI is biased. There is no AI that's not biased, y'all. I mean, let's just throw the baby out with the bathwater, get that out the way, right? There's no AI it's all biased, so you can complain all you want to. What you do is you help mitigate that bias by building your own system around the AI to help it personalize towards you and your situation. You know,
that's still work, isn't it, Maestro? That's still damn work. And a lot of people don't want to do work. They want the quick way out. And I talked about it yesterday. There is no quick way out of this. Like that song, there's no easy way out. It just isn't. And if anybody told you there is, they are lying to you.
And that's a little bit of work.
Period.
I mean, if y'all can't do that work, I'll put it like this. That's a little bit of work.
This is not for you.
It's like if you can't build a project around, you can't make a folder on your computer or on your phone or a folder in the AI you're using and then upload some documents. If you can't do that, like Greg is saying, no, it's work. To me, that ain't a lot of work. That's poquito, as we say in San Antonio. That's poquito, a little bit, right? That ain't a lot of work. You have to be willing to do at least the bare, as they say, I ain't gonna say, but the bare minimum, right? And then you go from there to get your maximum opportunity. You don't know what that's going to be till you get the outcome, but doing the bare minimum from my perspective is building a project. You go use AI, stop going into AI and talking and about how you feel about this and how you feel about that. And
Get out your feelings, for real.
Get out your feelings, right? Because listen, the AI will coddle to you. No, that's another tip. Like certain AI will coddle to you. Sometimes it'll argue with you, but sometimes it'll be like, Eureka, you just said the smartest thing in the world. And it's like, nah.
Yeah, this is the best thing you could have found.
If you're
not familiar with the case law, or you're not familiar with whatever standard it is, you know, what is like the standard of review for determining certain things. If you don't know it, you're going to be jammed up. And just for some record keeping, because I want to, in keeping with what we talk about, and I think this is before, I don't remember when you, before the AI thing, but as you see here, going back to what we talked about, people should be able to show you. And as you can see, that I filed a petition for writ of certiorari to the Second District Court of Appeals. They did a per curiam, means it's a unanimous decision. This is what they determined, that the order that the court had filed, that had the court issued against me, the Second District Court of Appeals determined that the order was erroneous on its face. And it also says the court's order before them is devoid of any factual findings to support the injunction and does not even purport to incorporate any oral findings the trial court might have made. Now, one of the things that I did attach to this is what? The transcripts.
Transcripts. That's the only way they can come out to that conclusion.
Right. Well, they looked at the order, but what's the basis? On this basis, we're compelled to reverse to give you the reason. And that's just something that anybody could have anytime they want to. But you can go look it up, and there's the case number. The date that the second DCA came up with it, there's the case number. And the lower tribunal case is and I can't remember what the lower T is, but you can go find that and go with it. And there's the judges that made their decision. So there you go.
And based on what you were showing, that right there is also an example. Like, that's why I'm saying, like, what I saw right there, based on the document, I saw you have folders. You had structure, right? Like that's my point. Like, I'm gonna break it down to my point. You know what I'm saying? Because I want people to understand it from a simplistic. Because Greg, he's been doing this so long, y'all. Half of y'all, I promise you, I don't even know half the stuff he be saying sometimes with these terminologies and these legal words, right? Because this is a different scenario where you're in there talking with them. And this is something that I can't speak on Greg, but I can tell you, I'm not trying to be Greg. I won't be Greg. I got too much other stuff that I got to do that I want to do, whether I enjoy it or not enjoy this, whether he enjoys it or not enjoy it. And so I don't get stuck when it comes to he had to make sure, but I don't get stuck when it comes to being in the courtroom and having to speak as if I'm a lawyer. At first, when I started, I thought that that's what I needed to do. That drove me crazy. Now, I know over time, like muscle memory and anything else, when you in the gym, you start growing stronger, right? You keep doing them reps, you get stronger, but you're not going to get into the gym day one and be able to lift 500 pounds. It don't work that way, y'all. So it's just something that I think that a lot of people need to understand, that yes, you need to cite things correctly. That's one of the lessons that we're sharing when it comes to using AI. Make sure you're citing things correctly, whether it's the rules, whether it's the procedure, whether it's case law, right? But the main thing is you don't have to always memorize things to the extent that you have to be a Greg Doss to win. No, you don't. You don't have to be a Greg Doss to get an outcome that you desire. You have to make sure you're doing things properly, going through the proper channels. And then when you are in there, as Greg always says, you got to get in there to have an oral argument. You are speaking coherent, because they love to use that word incoherent. If they can use that word against you, you are speaking coherent. You're making a logical, assessment, of the scenario, right? And that you aren't misciting or misusing the law. You get caught real easily doing that, when you have opposition. So that's why I just try to break things down to people from my perspective. And I don't take away anything that Greg does or what he's doing when he shares the specific jargon, as I call it, or the legal terms. That's very important to know. But I don't want people to get discouraged thinking, well, if I don't know the legal term, and I do have to represent myself because I can't afford a lawyer, I'm screwed. See, you screwed if you have that mentality, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can speak as a layman's terms, but like you said, you may think, you can go in there and you're not going to lift 500 pounds on the first day, and you may think you're a gorilla, but once you get inside there and get up under that 500 pounds, you realize you're not. And that's what helped me learn. I was always willing to admit what I didn't know. Because you know everything, you're not gonna look into it. So I take everything as if it's a first time learning tool. First time learning it, and I go back and almost starting brand new. But the one advantage you're always going to have is nobody should know your case better. I've said it before. If you go to Child Support Basics, sign up for the Child Support Basics groups. You get perks for being a member of the Child Support Basics group. If you have this, one of the things we used to always say, you can't win if you don't go in. And understanding how to use the how to use the language. You can speak in layman's terms, it's just understanding what's going on. What's good? What's good, Massage Mike? And take advantage of these things because you get perks for being members of these groups, and you can call. And at least that way, if we're speaking, we can get closer to speaking the same language. And there's over 50 videos inside that Child Support Basics group, and I think people should take advantage of it. I'm not saying because it's mine; it's nominal, and you have full access. And we go through the groups, and we all learn together. So, and again, shout out to the Child Support Basics group because the 27-year journey culminated because you all came into existence, forced me to get off my lazy ass, and then some other things made me say, okay, let me address this so I can deal with that situation. And it just came out, and I did make a different argument. I learned to put the argument together a little better. Like we said, it was the day before she said, 2 days before she said no, came back, I made the structural corrections, got the results that I've been seeking for 27 years. I don't expect anybody to put themselves in the position that I put myself in for. I would never recommend that. You don't have to be Nelson Mandela. And we don't want to end up being Stephen Biko either. But the reality is I made a choice and I stood on it. And shout out to everybody who was a forerunner for me, because I stand on your shoulders. But again, to the Child Support Basics group, that was a collective victory. And I like to hope that it can inspire people to go back into doing what they need to do to get whatever relief they're seeking in their own cases. And hopefully it's a call to action, because the one thing that came out of this is, and shout out to my dad again, is, hey, one thing we know is an audit is desperately needed, because there's no way it should have taken 27 years to come to a conclusion that was evident on day one. But the call to action is not going to come around with everybody out here barbershop bitching about the problem. If you're not willing to put any effort into it, I ain't got time for that. I know what the problem is. I'm gonna go ahead and deal with it. Shout out to my man Steve the Dean Williams. He told me, Greg, you're not even a problem-oriented guy. Why are you even hanging around them guys? Like, damn, you're right. But I was hoping that more guys could get the remedy that they deserve. Like I said, we're not trying to get them to. I didn't need them to change the law. Obviously, the law was there. I just need you people to follow the damn law. Okay? Most guys aren't trying to get out of anything. We just want what's fair, or what the law affords. And I don't think it's difficult. I just think that too many people listen to people who tell you that some fantastical way of approaching it, and I think it does you a disservice. You ain't gonna get nothing if you ain't willing to grind for it. You don't get to start on no football team if you ain't working, no basketball, whatever it is. You're not the person inside those rooms are pros, and you don't make it to the pros being a half-ass player. It just don't happen. Golf, tennis, boxing, baseball, football, basketball. And the difference between a professional and the other guys who do it for fun, you may not be able to tell if you're watching two different games, but if you take a pro ball player and an amateur ball player and you put them on the same court, then it becomes glaring. The things that we think are easy because you're watching pros play against pros, you realize, oh, hell, they're way better than this guy. So I get off my soapbox with that, but there you go.
Now, I'm gonna say this. I completely disagree with Greg when it comes to the change. I think change is overdue. I agree with him when it comes to the audit, but when it comes to that change, I think change is overdue. I think it's disingenuous for the the scenario that we're in, where we make changes to speaking of sports. If I'm not mistaken, they changed the rules in football. They changed the rules in basketball, to match the modern time. How do we change the rules in other places? But when it comes to court systems, that no change is, at least on a mass scale, right? No change is happening.
You mean like, well, when I say there should be no, I think the rules are okay. The rules in places to hold people accountable. The call to action is for people to become more politically active and going into your representative and saying, hey, listen, this person kept making this rule over and over and over again, and their failure to follow the rules has now put the state in a particular position where the state can compensate you. The issue of malice may get the state off. You might want to look at the 11th Amendment. But when they fail to follow the procedure, that may be able to get you in alignment with some sort of financial enumeration. But with the rules being there and them not doing what them not following the rules, that may give you a cause of action. Of course, you may have to do what I do and file 768.2811 in Florida, give them a notice. In fact, I got to change my notice letter also for one of them. I'm gonna do that tonight and then run up here to the post office and mail some stuff out. But these are the things that you learn along the way within the process. But sitting on your hands, sitting in barbershops, hanging out with your boys and, rolling up one and smoking, drinking, whatever you do, ain't gonna get a damn thing accomplished. Listen to a bozo who ain't never done shit in his life tell you how he's this, that, or the other. Even listening to Greg ain't gonna get you there. You got to put feet to the mat, to the road, to whatever, and walk that mile. You got to. It's a battle of attrition. You got to travel your own road, bro.
It is. It's a battle. It's a war. And it's about, who can last the longest. Sometimes it's not even about how much money you have or how much knowledge you have. It's just about who can last the longest, because there's a reason why there's a term called settlement. It's a real term. There's a reason why, if you look at the data, most cases are settled out of court. More specifically, when it comes to the family court, right? Most cases, like literally most, and I'm saying this factually speaking, okay? Most cases do not go to court. They don't go to trial. That's why people settle. So we have to understand that, you don't always have to get in there to get what you want, but you do have to last. You got to do the work, as Greg is saying, and you got to be able to last the test of time, because they don't get paid. And believe me, again, another fact, ain't nobody working in these courtrooms in these buildings for free, y'all. I'm talking about working. They may be interning.
Good, bro.
And I always think this is how I always think from now on. When I didn't know, but now I know that conflict creates profit, right? We can say that in so many different facets.
The adversarial relationship is what fuels the engine.
That's why I say they don't want, for the most part. I'm not saying all the time.
They don't want harmony.
They don't want swift resolution, right? I rarely hear that swift resolution when it comes to the court system. Why? Because people get paid less. There's a reason why attorneys charge by the hour. Now, I do think that the AI is going to disrupt that whole notion. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to disrupt that, because it's like, well, if we know as the public you're using the AI and you're the attorney, and what took you an hour, or what you charged me for took you an hour, 2 hours, but now it's only taking you 2 minutes. I mean, there's an argument there, in my opinion, on whether or not they should still be getting paid for that whole 2 hours. I'm not digging in their pockets, but that's how I think.
You're trying to.
But we are already disrupting. Greg has been disrupting the market. He's been the AI doing exactly what AI is getting ready to do. He's been disrupting pockets for a while. I'm doing this.
No, don't say that. No, I'm not doing that. Greg,
I'm not. So you got an attorney working for you. Got an attorney. I thought we said in the beginning. I thought in the beginning, Greg, we said if we can see how much money it would typically cost if you hired an attorney. So that means you took some money out of somebody's pockets, right? Or am I wrong for that assessment?
I'm going to plead out on that one. Plead the fifth.
Oh, okay. Well, I ain't speaking for Greg, but that's my assessment.
Money make people do some strange things to people. So no, I'm just trying to mind my business and get out the way. But I'm pretty sure that if 10% of people took the same initiative that I took, it could be significant. Now, I've said this before, so this is not a secret. I send the other stuff in jest. If 10% of the population of Florida, and I'm not saying this in a braggadocious way, I'm saying in the most humble way, if 10% of people could do what I did, there would already be change. Because it would absolutely clog up the system. It would clog up that machine. The system would actually eventually run smoother, because it would force people to align and do things the right way, because they would know that the possibility of resistance would rise. And it's not just resistance being resistant. I'm only saying this is what the rules say, and this is what I demand.
I'm gonna call you plead the fifth man, Fauci. All right. So when it comes to this situation, though, I think that we have to learn.
Don't call me Trump because he did it too. Yeah.
We have to learn that this AI is not going backwards. Okay. And I'm telling y'all, like I'm putting my stamp on it. And the reason why I'm putting my stamp on it is because, you know, people in history aren't remembered because they're neutral. Like the biggest, he named Nelson Mandela, right? Why do we know Nelson Mandela? Because he was polarizing. He stood for something. I don't care whether you like or dislike certain people for your political belief or for your ideology or your religious belief. The most people who are remembered in history were polarizing. They made decisions that it don't matter if what they said or what they did, somebody didn't like it, and then somebody else did like it. That is how I believe that the mentality of a pro se litigant.
Some of those Christian fanatics would say, what was the Messiah? He wasn't a go along to get along guy, right?
That point taken. And that's why I'm saying that, you know, this AI right now, we showed you videos of lawyers using it. We showed you a video of somebody who was speaking on his behalf, even though he had an attorney, but he was speaking on his behalf and he said he used ChatGPT. And I guess the lawyer had mentioned, you know, just was kind of shocked. I'm not sure, but based on what we saw, like lawyer's a little shocked.
He come on guard with that dumb shit.
Like, how can you say that? But AI is here. And because of that, they are going to have to make new adjustments. Whether they're rules, procedures, or whatever, they're going to make new adjustments. You have an opportunity to get ahead of the curve, right? During this time before all those adjustments are made to use AI, because it's not illegal to use AI. As far as I know, I don't see any law saying you cannot use AI. We can look it up if y'all want to, but I believe that there's no law saying you can't use AI, and if you do, you're going to be punished. It's not the AI that people were scrutinized in the videos that we showed. It was the fact that the AI made up fake cases. And you can't do that, right? You can't be making up fake stuff.
You're right.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, you're right. Again, it's, you know, when I had an attorney, and I know he's watching because he's that kind of guy, jackass. But he made a mention to the judge that he believed that I'm obviously using AI. And to which I said, you know, I've always been him. But you know, there's nothing illegal about using AI. There was no AI when with the Greg Holder case, was there? There was no AI. The numerous traffic court cases. There was no AI when I was doing some of the other stuff years and years and years ago. All AI does is allow me to sharpen, to do things a little more proficiently. But even with the AI, I still have to do the work. I don't get more sleep because of AI. I seem to be getting less goddamn sleep because of AI. You know, because everything that's produced, I have to read it from top to bottom. I have to read the information I feed into the AI. I have to read the information I have to read the information I get from my research, take the information, parse it, try to put it in with a set of instructions, have it bring it out. Even if it drafts faster, I still have to go through every single line of that draft, make numerous corrections because it has to fit. It has to be my language. It has to be my feel. Otherwise, I couldn't present it anyway. It'd be like me trying to present something that you wrote. I can't do it. Definitely couldn't do it efficiently. So let's not pretend that this thing is an easy journey, because that, again, that's disingenuous, bro. And I won't do it. I don't like none of y'all, not to lie to you. So, and I love you too much to lie to you also. So, yeah.
But to your point, no, it's not an easy journey. I just think that it's okay to say that the AI can make it a little easier. You know, if you're willing to put in the work. I think that that's not an improper or reasonable person. And the reason why I keep using the word reasonable person, I'm doing that on purpose, y'all, without explaining it. That's one of the best things that I learned when it comes to holding these folks accountable, right? Because there's a reason why there's a reasonable person argument. And I think it's kind of sad that we don't use it enough, because from my perspective, it's based on logic. Basically, it's like saying, well, a logical person would think this way. But why would I say that? Because oftentimes, in my case, they ain't use logic. Like, I'm like, wait, hold on. So you're telling me that if I go outside and it's raining, that I'm not going to get wet? How is that logical? And that, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes they will do stuff like that. They'll say things like that to you. Like, that don't make no sense. So that's why I say a reasonable person would think, not that everybody, but somebody who was using reason. And I think that this makes it a lot easier for those who, again, can't afford an attorney. Greg advocates for you getting an attorney. I think the same thing, you know, especially if you are a working person. One thing that I don't think Greg emphasizes enough, and I make sure that I remember this, is that he had a community. He said he says it all the time, but more importantly, he didn't just have the community. You know, he had history. If you go on his channel right now, you'll see that if you go to the live section and you go to the live and you go to the most popular video, his veteran status is his most popular. That's not by accident. So he has a history that gives him, I would say, benefits that most people that are going to go through this process, right? As he says, it's a lot of work. You're not going to have always have the community. You're not going to always have the veteran status. You're not going to always have the most money to afford and pay for a high-profile attorney. So what do you do if you have none of that? Do you just not do nothing? You just sit on your ass and just stay still? Or do you use what you have, bubble gum and shoestring some of this shit, so to speak, you know what I'm saying? Do it properly, AKA use the AI to pull together things that you would not normally have access to, and make sure you read, right? You read and you read and you read. I think Greg has emphasized that a lot of times you have to read. I always read what pops out the AI. And when sometimes you'll read so much, you get analysis paralysis. So you got to pause. Take a break for a couple of days, come back and look at it. I promise you, oftentimes more than not, you'll see something you ain't seen before.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I tell people all the time is it's not an easy journey whatsoever. And you're fooling yourself if you think it is.
So any final thoughts? What are your final thoughts on making sure that people are using, you know, these tools properly, specifically the AI?
Well, they can seek you out. I'm pretty sure you can put your information in the chat room as to how you do your studying. Me, I could always do the research anyway. You know, it's kind of part of my academic background. Of course, I honed the skills over the years. It helped that I spent a lot of time around attorneys. You know, with a political science background, the research was a little bit more the easy part. Understanding the language, understanding how to issue spot. These are a whole lot of things that I got because of my associations. And I won't say the name of a lot of the attorneys that have helped me along the way or told me, hey, look for this. Hey, how about look at that? You know, it's even crazy. When I was in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, this is the federal court, by the way, 11th Circuit Federal Court of Appeals. An attorney called me out of the blue and said, you know what? Keep it narrow. Because I was looking for an attorney to help me with my appeal. And we can imagine what those would cost. And he was like, did you call me? I said, yeah. He said, keep it narrow. It's way too much. He said, I've been doing this for 25 years. Narrow it, hit your points, get out of there. I didn't know the guy. I can't remember his name to this day. But I've spoken, I probably have spoken to about cases no less than 15 attorneys. And I appreciate all of them, even the ones that needed me for some other things. But I've learned a lot, whether it's in auto negligence, criminal law, just civil procedure, appeals. You know, somebody told me, so I probably have as many appeals as a whole bunch of attorneys. And that's not because I wanted them, by the way. I like to have this shit, not even get to any kind of trial decision. But if I don't appeal it, then I'm just kind of letting things go. But it's not easy, people. And anybody that tells you that, you know, they have some kind of super whimsical, they're like Mysterio or somebody, what's his name? Mitzelplick, which is the one, Superman, the magic guy. I'm more Marvel, but you're not going to get this stuff through no kind of second hand, third hand. You have to roll up your sleeves and put in the work. So if you use an AI, which is a tremendous tool, you have to put in the work, and you have less excuse today than the guys like me who had to carry backpacks to school. Y'all's backpacks look like this now, you know, and that. So I don't want to hear about excuses. Don't want to hear about your excuses about time. 27 years. 27 years to get a resolution. So that's pretty much it. So when you're ready, we'll close out and close out and get out. I ain't trying to hear no excuses. In short, I want to hear your damn excuses.
I agree. I think that that's probably, one of the wrap it up, themes, amongst using these tools and using AI more specifically is it eliminates a lot of excuses. I mean, I think that that's one of the biggest things I would say about everything that we're sharing is, I call it, it's the excuse eliminator. And it's not just the excuse of, are you able to do it in this way or that way? I'm just saying that it's there, and it could be the reason why you hire the right lawyer, right? It could do more than just help you represent yourself. It could be the reason why, you don't make a bad decision on who you end up hiring to represent you. Right. But even still, guess who's going to jail, or guess who's paying child support, or guess who's getting in trouble when it comes to that final rule? It ain't that lawyer unless they get out of pocket.
At the end of the day, they're going home. And they'll tell you
going home.
Going home.
To a glass of wine and sunshine. So it doesn't matter which direction you go. I think that you just have to understand that the excuse is no longer there for none of us, right? For nobody doing this litigation stuff, neither them nor us. In this scenario, but if you're going to use the tool, use it properly, make sure that you use multiple tools. And the reason why I keep emphasizing that is because every tool has a bias. That's why Greg does not just use ChatGPT. He just don't use OpenCase. He just don't use Westlaw. He uses them all, not all of them specifically, but all these tools that I just named. And, I still keep trying to get him to use ChatGPT more.
Claude, and you forgot
Claude. Yep. Perplexity. That was one. That's a golden nugget right there to for the last drop is use like Perplexity, for example. It's really good at research. It was meant to be an internet researcher, almost kind of replace Google. So that's what helped me avoid a lot of the hallucinations in the beginning that I was getting ready to make, because guess what? I made those mistakes. I just never filed them.
Gemini too. Gemini is another one that I stepped on early on was Gemini. But I'll be honest and say that a lot of the stuff that I used was more for drafting. I think you said something about you had did some kind of test on our coaching session, and it gave you something about the way I did it was based upon, you said, well, I actually had the skill set before, so it allowed me to enhance what I could do. And I was absolutely against AI. To realize, hey, it types faster than me, and I do about 70 words a minute. So I think this is a prime opportunity that you all have. People should be really grateful for Maestro for bringing me out, waking me up, and get me out of the cave, because I'm ready to do other things and I have other cases. But if it's going to help other people, which I think if you all take advantage of having a Maestro, it could benefit the populace at large, the community at large. Okay.
I like that. Well, I appreciate you as normal, as usual, and forever and for always. I think that you have made an impact on my life and made an impact on others. And, it's just information that you've given and you shared with me. No matter, where we go in the future of our engagement, I can't, you can't take that back. You can't, you know what I'm saying? You can't. That's the beautiful thought, the part about, having this conversation. And I appreciate everybody who commented in the chats. Thank you for engaging. I appreciate everybody watching the replays on both of our channels and making sure that you are showing us some love by, if anything, at minimum, whether you go to Greg for a consult or you go to me on some technology consultation, you just subscribing to the channel, you liking the video, you asking a question in the comment, that right there helps us continue what we're doing. As this is free information that we're sharing here, and we'll have to pay bills too as well. Some of us are still on child support, unlike others. Some of us ain't win everything, so we got bills to pay. But yeah, man, thank y'all as normal. Lego to Prego.
It's always imparting. Sometimes it's not about right or wrong. More important, it's about clarity. You never reach a resolution if you're not willing to engage in honest dialogue, even if that dialogue is with yourself. Take time to hug the person you love and love the person you hug. On behalf of GD9 Attorney Pro Se Consultants, I'm Greg Doss. I'm the infamous DJ Squid. I'm saying shout out to all veterans. Looking forward to doing more of the PSA for veterans. I'm saying peace. I'm saying chicken grease. I'm out.
All right. Stream ending.